Welcome to episode 1 of the Mental Dietitian podcast. My guest today was Kit Dale. He is a 2-time world jiu-jitsu champion. He's an actor. He's an all-round cool dude. Happens to be a fellow Australian. And most importantly of all, is a fellow Lord of the Rings nerd. We had an amazing conversation about how he went from being a white belt to being a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, one of the longest grading systems in any martial art. Usually takes 12 years, 10 to 12 years. He did it in 4. That's mind-blowing. He's one of the fastest people to ever do that. And I wanted to have him on the podcast to talk about his mindset about how to learn. He said most people do jiu-jitsu wrong. And even if you do not do jiu-jitsu, listen to this podcast because his mindset behind learning will blow your mind. Here we go. Well, we are live. Welcome. I've got Kit Dale on the show today, and I'm excited to have a chat with you, man. We've chatted before, and I think I've known you for about 3 weeks now. So
it's been a long time, man.
feels like it's been a long time for sure. But yeah, man, I want to have you on the show today because I wanted to chat to you about a number of different things. Obviously, we spoke for like 2 hours last time, didn't it? It was a long time.
Yeah, I think it was even a little longer than that. I think like 2.5 hours.
Holy shit.
15-minute chat. It was meant to happen.
Yeah, man. It was good chatting to you. I felt like we were like friends just instantly talking about all kinds of different things like Lord of the Rings, talking about acting, talking about jiu-jitsu. I want to get you on the show today because I think you're a really interesting dude. And I've admired you for a very, very long time, like on Instagram. I followed you probably for like about a year, but before that I followed you. I used to have friends send me videos of funny shit that you would do on Instagram, or just funny things you'd like throwing shit at people at like the gym, and like that ball you threw at the wall and it smacked that dude in the face. That's like 15 million views or something. It's like, holy shit.
Yeah. One of my students. Yeah, it's so funny. You actually look similar to that student. That was when I used to run a gym called Into Fitness. Well, actually, I didn't run the gym. I ran the jiu-jitsu in the gym. It was a huge gym. It was so good. It was like imagine we had a wrestling mat inside a massive open gym. So it's so much more enjoyable when you've got like so many things to like look at. Back then it was great because there's a lot of attractive females doing weights and stuff while we're training. It would be so funny. We'd be trying to like look at these girls, but not obviously. So we'd be like, just move this way a little bit, and I would try and look past them.
Move the guy in side control. You guys are doing north south. Hey, bro, move for a second.
Just shove this way. Let me just look through your legs really quickly. And that was great. But we had like a fun culture there, and we would always mess around. And some of it looks like bad, but it was not. Everyone was always very happy to do things and do like, we either come in and go, let's do a video of this. You throw this ball at me, you do this and stuff. And that ball one just worked out really well. I used to have a really good aim with throwing things until like I pretty much destroyed my shoulders through jiu-jitsu. But that ball, like I threw that and it hit the back and then bounced and hit him right in the mouth, I think was perfect.
It was perfect. Yeah. It curved, hit the wall, then came back. It was perfect.
Yeah, I had a little bit of spin on that. I think I checked that video the other day and I saw how many comments were just about my aim and like just really curious about that. I was like, wow. I mean, look, it was also luck. I could have missed that a million times as well, but it just hit right.
The stars aligned. You just nailed it.
Yeah, I think it was about the same time where Vine was really big, because I had another one where I was training with another Brazilian jiu-jitsu dude. He's from Brazil, Mita Almeida, and we had something similar. We were hitting with a tennis ball into each other. I think we had like a challenge. But I mean, this goes back years ago. I think we were shooting each other when we were younger. Not when I say younger, I mean like 19, 20, with a pellet gun. You know, like those, I think it's a pellet gun, or was it 22? I can't remember which one it is. But shooting each other while we're like lined up against the wall. And it wasn't like strong enough to pierce the skin. It would like break the skin, but it wouldn't go in your body. But we would aim at like the inside of the elbows and stuff like that. We've got Matt Burn right here.
I was like, is that the scar from the front?
No. Yesterday's wrestling, dude. Yeah. I was just wrestling with a buddy of mine, and he took me down, and I just like scuffed the ground. Oh, it hurts more than anything. It's so stupid.
Dude, it sucks. Those little burns I get them on my toes from going for takedowns on people. Like I'll go for a double leg and like, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's like one of the first habits. Like once you start wrestling more, you're just like, okay, like I need to like not drag these feet so much. Depending on what mats you've got too. Some mats don't affect it, but like sometimes you get like those cheap mats that have got like little, like it's a different texture, and that shit will melt your feet right off, no matter how conditioned you are.
Yeah, it depends how good the gym is. Sometimes you go to these new gyms and they get the cheap mats and you're just burning the shit out of your feet. It's usually like like a vinyl covering almost. It's like that's what burns it. The tatami mats are really good. I think they're tatami. I think they are. But
they're good.
They're sick.
Yeah, tatami, and I think there's another brand that I bought. I can't remember what it's called here. Dolomar, really nice. But there's one type of brand. My buddies have it in Australia, and everyone I go there, like everyone's got mat burns consistently, and I don't think they realize like it's from the mats. It's not from themselves. So it's just annoying.
Like, yeah, bro, it's just part of doing jiu-jitsu. It's like, no, man, it doesn't have to be. Like,
no, you don't have to have a million cuts on it. And then you're going to get like infections all the time with that kind of stuff. That's, how staph, spreads so much, is like cuts and shit like that, toenail cuts. I think that's the first sign that I know that if I've got like any kind of infection, if I've got like a few little cuts on me and they're really red or sore, I'm like, oh shit, I'm in trouble.
How long have you been doing jiu-jitsu for now? Like, when did you start?
I started in 2008. I was working with I don't think I was working with my cousin. I was playing Australian rules football, and I was 21, 22 years old. And I started like playing really well at senior football. And I started like becoming like a well-known player in the league. I'm playing Division 1.
Yeah.
But I was not physically built the way I am now. And I had hair back then, and I looked a lot more shy. And I was definitely shy. I was scared of like any kind of fights. I was never, I would be the person that would run and hide. And some of the bigger players, the more rough players in the league, started realizing this. So they would hit me behind play. And I remember it got to a stage where I was running with a ball and some guy just punched me so hard in the stomach and I fell backwards. And I remember looking at him and just thinking, if I get up and try and fight this guy now, he's going to bash me and I'm going to lose this. And this is not a wise decision. So I thought, well, I need to learn how to protect myself. I want to learn how to fight. And I was a big fan of the UFC. So I was looking for an MMA school. While I'm talking that, I'm realizing I've got chocolate from last night's ice cream that I had still on my lips, by the way. Let's just forget that was there. I started at an MMA school under Robert Parmakovsky, and it wasn't like a traditional MMA school. It was more like a Jeet Kune Do school. For those who don't know, it's Bruce Lee's way of the intercepting fist. So he used a lot of Jeet Kune Do philosophy, which I strongly agree with. With Bruce Lee, it was miles ahead of his time. And we would learn stuff like Kali, like stick knife fighting. We did a lot of striking, and then we did a ground session on the ground. I'd never done any kind of jiu-jitsu before, and other than what I saw in, the UFC or whatnot. And I remember sitting there and seeing a tiny little guy, and I'm thinking, man, I'm just going to bash this dude. It's going to be easy. And he just annihilated me and just swept me. And I just felt like I had no idea what I was doing. And then I just remember thinking, man, I really want to learn this, because obviously it's not confined by athleticism. So I think we did a few more sessions with him, but it was really hard because I was working at the time. I was working about an hour and a half away from where I lived, and I would do truck driving, and I would truck drive for 10 hours and then go back home an hour and a half. So it was a full day. So it was very hard to find any time.
Like semi trucks, like big semi trucks.
I had to get my truck. I got my truck license and was doing. I hated it. It was really. I mean, look, it was not bad because you're in a truck, you listen to music and stuff. But I mean, that would always fill me up like with more shit than I could deliver in 8 hours. So I knew it was always going to be a longer day. So it kind of limited my activities after hours. But eventually I got a different job with the same department, and I started training down in Ringwood, which is in like the eastern suburbs of Melbourne. And it was a small school run by a guy, Bernie Jenkins, that was a brown belt. And it was mostly no-gi. And I did like a week of no-gi with them. And then I remember I did my first week of gi, and some guy had my back and like just tweaked my neck. And I remember being in the car and having to hold my head like this because it hurt so much with swaying. Like, you get that Batman neck where you got you have to move like this. You can't really look because it hurts. You're like, oh. I trained for like a good 6 months. and I never thought of competing at all. And one of my good partners, who I just started getting the better against, who's the one who hurt my neck, he went to a competition. I'm expecting him to just get destroyed, and he goes into the competition and he wins. And I'm just thinking, like, man, if he won that, then I could probably win as well. So I did a tournament, like maybe a couple of weeks after. It was a very small in-house tournament run by Dominance Martial Arts. And there was also open belt. So I did my white belt division. I think I had 5 fights and I won them all. I won 4 by submission, the last one just on points. And then I went into the open division and I fought 2 purple belts and a blue belt. And I beat them as well. And I wasn't at that level then. It was just, they were not great blue belts or purple belts, to be honest with you. But I was doing quite well as a white belt. And I was very athletic at that stage as well. So that helped. And I remember being in the back room, these guys come up to me and they're like, dude, your jiu-jitsu is really like motivating. It was really great to see you do that. And I just thought, man, that felt really good. Like my ego just loved it. And so I started competing more and more. And I think within 10 months, I was a blue belt. And I went and I won like the blue belt Abu Dhabi qualifiers. I went to Abu Dhabi as a blue belt. I won Abu Dhabi as a blue belt. I was purple belt. I actually, when I won the Abu Dhabi as blue belt, the Abu Dhabi trials, I competed in the next tournament as a purple belt and won that as well in between the trials. But I wasn't allowed to compete a purple belt in the trial of the actual world qualifier because I qualified as blue belt. And I won that. Then I won the purple belt qualifiers the year after. Won the purple belt the year after. The year after that, I went as a brown belt. I got silver as a brown belt. I fell asleep before my match and lost to Sebastian Broche, who's a really good friend of mine. He has yoga for BJJ, which is doing really well. And then I was black belt within 4 years, and I was competing at black belt worlds and doing quite well. And then I just kind of got a little bit bored of the competition scene. Didn't really interest me as much. I thought it was something a little different, and I thought it'd probably lead in a different area. And then once I kind of got to that level, I was just a little bit bored and wanted a new challenge. And I decided to get more into acting and stuff. And then that was about 2014. And I had a really good run with the acting and stuff, and that's still going, and I'm still growing. But I continue to train and teach, but I definitely train more like a hobbyist than a professional. And it's hard to try and balance training as a hobbyist to actually competing professionally as well, because you go into competitions with zero fitness because you've been traveling or doing your own thing, and you definitely don't get as good as results as what you could. But I still do very well. I think I've been like the semifinals of every single black belt world championship I've ever entered, which is great.
Wow.
And if I lose, it's by like a point or an advantage or something like that usually. So against the guys that won the last one, I think I win was 2019. I beat 2 really tough guys and then lost to Josh Hinger by an advantage, which should never have even been. I honestly should have won that match. You go back and look at it, and the referees just gave it him for some reason. He demolished the next 2 and won the whole division. So I feel like that would have definitely been me. But yeah, so that's kind of how I got into it and where it sort of took me. And then I decided to step out of it professionally and I still coach professionally, but I'm not interested in competing professionally. And sometimes it comes back. Sometimes I'll be like, I should compete in that. But honestly, the effort for me is probably not worth the reward that you get.
Yeah. Interesting, because I looked up, I did obviously a bit of research on you before I had you on the show, and I was like, you're apparently like one of the fastest people to ever get a black belt. I think BJ Penn did it in like 3 years apparently, but apparently that dude was training like 7 times a week, like 7 days a week, and hired somebody one-on-one to do like one-on-one, get my black belt as fast as possible.
I heard, this is what I heard, and I don't know if it's true or not. I heard he trained for 7 years before he went through the belt system.
Okay, that's
and you'll find most people are very similar to that. It's like, and there was other couple like really fast, like Travis Stevens, I think went through in 4 years, but he was also an Olympic level judoka before he even decided to do jiu-jitsu. So that's a huge advantage. There's a lot of guys that were MMA fighters or only no gi, then they went through a belt system, or they were training under somebody else and went through and then got graded off somebody completely new and started as white, but they were really purple or blue, brown, and then they went from white to black. As far as I'm concerned, and I may be wrong, I'm the fastest person to ever do it without having any prior grappling experience.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
And it's in my head, I was talking to someone the other day, an investor, and he's a student of mine, and this guy's a brilliant investor. And he was saying to me, he goes, it's so funny because he looks at and he sees how fast he's learning jiu-jitsu now that we've changed the way, he looks at jiu-jitsu and trains. And he goes, I feel like the same thing he feels in investing. It's not that we're doing something right. It's just that everyone else is doing something wrong. And I try and tell people that there's nothing brilliant about what we're doing. It's just the way we were naturally designed to learn. But somewhere along the line, people got confused and people got sidetracked and people thought that certain things were leading to progression that really weren't. And I feel like it's taking 80% of the bullshit that you need, that the people think you need to learn jiu-jitsu, and maximizing the 20% that really gives you the results.
It's like the Pareto principle. Focus on 20% and it'll give you 80% of the result. You know about that, right? The Pareto principle.
Yeah, Vilfredo Pareto.
Yeah,
the Italian economist, right?
Yeah, he looked at a society. I think it was in the 1800s, and he was like, 80% of the shit we do produces 20% of the result, and 20% of the things we do produces 80% of the result. And you can do that across everything. Like you can do it in jiu-jitsu, you can do it in your finances or your investments or even your happiness. Like there's a certain small thing that we do every day that makes us happy, and then 80% of the shit we do doesn't fucking make us happy at all. So it's like, why don't I just stop doing that shit and do the stuff that actually makes me happy? I'd love to hear your perspective. Like, obviously, this guy's an investor that is a student of yours, and he's probably seeing the parallels between the way that you teach people how to learn. And I think you shared to me last time, most people don't know how to learn. And when you say that to people, they're probably like, what the hell do you mean by that? But obviously, this guy's probably like, well, I could do this in every area of my life. And you've probably seen that too. Like, what is the mindset behind it? I don't really know how to ask this question, but what is that thing, do you think, that helped you get a black belt in such a short period of time that you could apply to other areas of your life as well? Like that how to learn thing. Like, try and explain that if you can, like your philosophy behind that.
Well, first off, it was accidental. I didn't have any kind of information on it. I just knew that personally, I like to figure things out. I like to figure my own problems out. And I get a lot of joy out of doing that. And if I feel like if someone else is figuring it out for me, it's not as fun. It's like, for me, it's like doing a puzzle. Like the puzzle is great. If that's my challenge, I want to do it. And if somebody else is helping me or doing it, then I don't feel as good about myself. And this leaks into any area of life. The same as steroids and stuff like that. Like I compete completely unfucking juiced. And I hate the fact that people can do that and not feel bad about themselves, or people cheat on gaming and stuff like that. For me, I take a lot of pride. It's probably my ego. Like I take a lot of pride in what I'm doing. And I don't want to cheat myself out of doing it. Otherwise, I'll always know, you know what I mean, that I didn't deserve that. And there's a lot of jiu-jitsu guys that don't deserve the awards that they've won because they've cheated. A lot of gamers don't, deserve the kill-death ratio they have because they're cheating. I see this all the time. It confuses me and baffles me. And that kind of goes to why I like to do, solve my own problems in jiu-jitsu. And from a beginning age, I was not very interested in people telling me how to do something. I was more interested in figuring it out myself. And I try to do this as nicely as possible. I remember, countless times people come and go, oh, check out this technique, or try this, practice this. And I would just be like, I'd be looking at it, but I'd be looking straight through them and just not interested. I want to figure that out myself. And occasionally I get to a position where I feel like, oh, I don't have the answer and someone could give me an answer and it's cool. I'd look at that. But I never drilled it or practiced it and created muscle memory. I was always like, okay, I see what you're doing. I'm going to take conceptually the why out of this and then try and figure out multiple ways of how to do it. So I did that and I progressed really quick. And we couldn't understand it because everyone else was like practicing techniques and learning new techniques and drilling new techniques and then coming to training and trying to force those techniques on. And here's Kit that skips the first part of the class, the first 30 minutes of the class, comes into the positional sparring, jumps straight in, jumps into the rolls, doesn't even roll that much, like takes like fucking a break every second roll because I'm lazy, and progressing much faster than any of those guys. And it was later on that I started looking at case studies on learning and try to look at biologically what learning really is, and then realized, oh shit, okay, this is why I learned so quickly compared to other people, because other people are trying to, adopt an industrial age model of learning that was created in the 60s to make factory workers, and implementing it and learning other areas of life. Now, learning, everyone is capable of learning. It's just knowing how you learn and understanding how you learn and how to apply that to what you're trying to learn. For example, if you break down learning, what is learning? Learning is the body's biological, reaction to being in a dangerous situation. Biologically, learning is just to keep us alive. You're in a dangerous situation. Your body wants you, or your brain wants you to survive this in the future. So let's take as much information from this situation as we can so we can evolve and learn and avoid this or overcome this in the future. That's really what learning is. Okay, biologically, we're designed to do like major things: reproduce and learn. And if we do both of those, then we're going to keep spreading like a virus that we are.
You mean to keep us alive? You mean?
Yeah.
So
it's a survival mechanism.
What you're saying is the thought that came to my mind when you said that is, if something raises an emotional feeling within you while you're learning it, you are more likely to retain that because there's maybe an emotion attached to it. For example, if it's jiu-jitsu, if you're like actually rolling with somebody, you're more likely to learn things and take things in because it's a real world application and you're actually potentially in danger. Versus if you just drilled and over again, it's more safe and maybe there's no emotion attached to it. That's the thought that I had. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so the amygdala is in charge of not only putting you in fight or flight mode, but it's also in charge of how deep to store information in your brain, how deep to store specifically declarative information in your brain. Declarative information is information you can declare. It's like memory. If I asked you what you did yesterday, you'd be using your declarative information. If you started walking, you'd be using procedural information, which is muscle memory. Okay, you might use a little declarative while you're walking as well, but your body is going to just be using muscle memory mostly. So if we understand that, then we understand that the brain will dictate how deep to store information based off how emotionally aroused we are. If you're and that's how it decides whether it's a dangerous situation or not. In most dangerous situations, you're quite emotionally aroused. Let's say you're walking on a footpath and you see a mountain lion pop out of the bush. Okay, you're probably going to shit yourself. You're gonna, and you're going to be very scared, and your brain is going to instantly absorb as much information as it can to and put you in fight or flight mode, but also remember that so it can survive that in the future. If you're walking down a dark alley and this big bald dude comes with a baseball bat running after you, it's going to do the exact same thing. And the more emotionally aroused you are, the deeper it's going to store that information. Now, if you look at learning jiu-jitsu and you want to remember things and you're trying to learn techniques, while you're sitting there telling yourself consciously, I want to remember this technique, your brain is telling you, forget it, we don't need this. This is not important for our survival. And it'll forget it quite quick. That's why 95% of the techniques you've learned, you've forgotten.
Oh, yeah. Every time I train.
Yeah, literally. It's a really bad, inefficient way of learning jiu-jitsu. The other problem is people are basing progression in jiu-jitsu off of the accumulation of techniques rather than the acquisition of skill and knowledge, which is different. What I became in jiu-jitsu is what you would call a very good problem solver, while we had other people that were more like choreographed dancers that just recite the techniques. And that's fine if you're a traditionalist and that's what you want to do. You want to perform techniques with a cooperating partner to look really pretty and nice. That's fine. There's a massive market for that on Instagram. People are more attracted to that than anything.
Like WWE, but jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, oh wow, that was an amazing technique. And look, I've done it before. I do stunt fighting for film, so I'm trying to come up with choreography and stuff like that. And it's very easy for me to do that kind of stuff. Is it real? No. Is it realistic? Most likely not. Does it hold its weight in water? No. But it looks cool on film.
Yeah.
But people are doing that in terms of learning jiu-jitsu and thinking that that's the way to get good at jiu-jitsu. And people are sucked in by that because they see me and you practice some fancy little thing and it looks really nice. I want to go learn that. And the first thing is I want to drill that technique. And it's like,
A
you've
flying
missed the whole
triangle or
point.
something, like a flying armbar,
Yeah.
flying triangles. Yeah.
Yes. What you want to do is you want to look at that technique and break it down and go, okay, why is that technique working? What is he really trying to achieve here? Okay, the flying triangle, he's jumping and he's wrapping his legs around his neck and he's cutting off both carotid arteries. How's he doing that? How can I recreate this in the moment? And then try and play with it more like a scientist rather than a fucking, what do you call it, factory line worker or something like that. So the understanding that it's not about the accumulation of techniques, that you don't need to actually learn techniques, will free you up a lot more and you'll start learning properly because you'll start having to problem solve your way through these issues. If you think about mathematics, how you learn mathematics at a very basic level is you learn by memorization. Okay. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2 is 2. Is that right? No, it's 4. It's 4. There you go. Obviously didn't learn. And you can do that, on a very basic level. But as soon as the equations become a little bit more difficult, as 223.4 times 14.5, then you're going to want to have a formula to work those out. So the same sort of thing happens in jiu-jitsu at a very low level. People will try and memorize the answers for it. The problem is that when those problems become a little bit more complex, which they will, you're going to be a little stuck there and not be able to memorize it or have answers memorized for that. You're going to have to use a formula to come up with a solution in the moment, or just use your own instincts if you don't have a formula. So that's the way I sort of proceeded in jiu-jitsu was okay, I'm pretty good at problem solving my way through these issues now. And now I want to try and find a formula so I can help other people problem solve their way through it, like a guide, so to speak. And it's something that allows them to be also flexible in a sense of their body type, the way they like to roll, their game, everything they can take into account. So they can use the same principles as what I use, but come up with different solutions every single time.
Yeah, and that makes sense. You're more of a system principle based rather than technique based, because if you don't know why you're doing something, then there's no point doing the what or the how. I remember recently, it was actually probably about 6 months ago, I was trying to pass this guy's guard, right? Mm-hmm. And I was trying to grab his lapel, up here. And the black belt, the teacher was like, passing the guard is so simple. All the guard is his legs. So if you just get around the legs, you pass the guard. That one statement blew my mind, because a lot of new people, they try and grab the hips, or they try and grabbing the lapel and they're already in the person's space. He's like, grab their legs, push them to the ground, and you can pass their guard, or just focus on the legs. In that principle, I was like, oh shit, I don't need to be fancy. I don't need to do cartwheel passes. I just need to his legs. I need to deal with that. So what else is that, outside of jiu-jitsu, that way of learning, or that mindset you developed through jiu-jitsu? How has that helped you with acting? How has that helped you with business? How has that helped you with other areas of your life, other arenas of your life to be successful?
Well, first off, I know that if I want to get good at something, I have to be willing to suck at it. Yeah. I have to be willing to make as many mistakes as I can, but learn from them at the same time. So let's take snowboarding into example. I started snowboarding 2 years ago, and I knew that, okay, on the way to snowboarding, people are telling me, what to do. Okay, watch out for this, do this, make sure you do this. And everything they said just went through one ear and out the other, because I had no kind of context to associate this information to. It just didn't make any sense until I got on that board, and then I started making a whole heap of mistakes. And I started smashing and falling and crashing. And I think that day or that weekend that we're there, I've crashed probably 300 times, which I wouldn't. Obviously, most people can't do that because they can't afford to do that because their body would get hurt. But I'm competing and I'm training in jiu-jitsu all the time. I'm used to falling. I do so much wrestling. So it's very easy for my body to handle those kind of falls. Yeah. And some were big. Some I was going really fast when I fell as well. Scorpioned a few times. One time I caught the back edge, heel edge, and I flipped back and hit my back on the ground. My helmet went flying off. My board, nearly hit myself in the face with my legs swung over the top. Luckily, my legs were a little longer, it went over the top. But regardless, I crashed so much, and I gave myself so much opportunity to learn from my mistakes that I started getting really good. And I probably was at a stage where most people take a month after 2 days of snowboarding.
Yeah.
And then I went and did more, and I did like 10 days. And then I was asking like people that have been snowboarding for a long time, like, what level do you think I would be at? Like 2 years probably. And it's because I know, one, I'm going to suck. I'm going to be trash. And I'm not going to be perfect first time. And I have to understand that development in something is about allowing that to happen. And most people take the opposite approach. And let's say jiu-jitsu, for example, or snowboarding, they come and they want you, the professional, to tell them exactly how to do something so they don't have to make the same mistakes. And then they're robbing themselves of learning, because it's in those mistakes that you're going to learn from that's actual true learning. Mm-hmm. That's what trial and error is. And that's where you really learn. So they go into jiu-jitsu and tell me, okay, I'm in this position here, I'm in guard. Instead of what you were told, like, okay, just get past the legs. It's very simple. That's all you have to do. Try and do it. Make it happen. Find a way. There's a million ways. It's not rocket science. They go in there and they're told, okay, now what we're going to do from this position, make this grip here. You know, they're told exactly what to do. And now they get in there and they're trying to repeat that, and they're trying to create muscle memory, and then they're trying to force that on their opponent. That's like trying to learn how to speak by memorizing certain sentences. How far are you going to get memorizing sentences? Mm-hmm. Like, imagine you've got two of you guys, and I'm like, okay, you both want to learn how to pick up women. Okay, I'm going to teach you a heap of pickup lines. Okay, and I want you to memorize these pickup lines and go and say it, right? And then I'm going to get your other friend that's exactly the same as you, and I'm not going to teach him shit. I'm going to say, listen, there's 100 women out there. I want you to open with every single one of those. And here's the trick. You're going to fucking suck. You're going to bomb. They're going to tell you to shut up. They're going to ignore you. They're going to hate you. I don't care. I want you to learn from that. Go and speak to every single one of them. While the other ones, while you are learning, you know, going up there and using pickup lines, who do you think is going to learn more in that situation? Who do you think is going to be developing more organically? The guy that's going to go up and speak to every single one of them. He's going to eventually figure out what works and what doesn't work, how to approach them, how, you know, and conceptually he'll figure that out as well. It could be not so much the words you're saying, but the way you're holding yourself. You go and you start practicing these things. You go and say the same word to 5 different girls, or same sentence, but you use like a different body posture. You dress differently. You say it with a different context. And that's how you're going to develop in that area. So I try and get people to stop trying to find the answer or get told the exact answer, because there is no real answer. Even in jiu-jitsu, like, everything can work and everything won't work at the same time, depending on the timing of it. You know what I mean? It's the same thing if you're talking to somebody. If I want to ask you for $100, then I'm going to try and pick the best time to ask you for $100. And it's probably not going to be when you're angry or when you're, you know, or something's not going right. I'm going to try and pick you when you're really happy and you're feeling generous. Yeah. You know, and it's the same thing with, like, you know, approaching a woman. You're going to have the same kind of instincts. Is this girl like really pissed off right now? This is probably not the best time for me to go speak to her. If she got a glass of, she's going to throw a glass of fucking wine in my face. You know what I mean? So with learning other things, understanding that, or just accepting the fact that there is no perfect way of doing anything. And you would know this with like your job as well as sales. It's like, there's no, like, you can't tell someone, okay, just do this and it's going to work. It just doesn't work like that.
People ask me like, how do you do it? How do you be a good salesman? I'm like, I don't know, man. Just call a bunch of people. You'll figure it out. Like, if you just talk to massive amounts of people, you'll figure it out. It's right. What you said reminded me of this book I read once, where there was this like pottery teacher, right? He was teaching pottery in a university or a college or something. And there was one group of students that got graded on how many pots they made. And if you made like 60 pounds of pots, you'd get a C. If you made 80 pounds, you get a B. If you made 100 pounds, you get an A. And then the other group of students were graded on how perfect their pot was. And the second group of students were really focusing on, okay, how do we make this pot look like perfect? And like, it's like, there's no defects at all. There's nothing wrong with it. What's interesting, apparently in this study, that the people who were graded on volume made a much more perfect looking pot than the people that just focused on making the perfect pot, because they were just exactly what you said. They just
most people didn't even start it. They like threw them away.
They didn't. They wouldn't. They would just focus on making one perfect pot, and they were like, "Oh, it's not perfect," and they would just like try to make that thing perfect. Other people were just pumping out volume, and half the pots look like shit. By the time they've made 100 pounds of pottery, this thing looks perfect just by default because of volume. It's exactly what you're saying, and I think we live in a world right now, especially with like Instagram and social media. There's a lot of bullshit. There's a lot of overnight success seen, or even somebody listening to this, but like maybe they're starting jiu-jitsu, or maybe they're starting their business journey. Like, oh, well, Kit got his jiu-jitsu black belt in 4 years. So if I don't get mine in 4 years, I'm a loser. And there's a lot of that in with money. Like, oh, look at this kid sold this NFT in 6 weeks and he made 700 grand. You're like, what the hell? Or with gaming, for example, like you look at like FaZe Clan or whatever they're called, and just like this crazy. And that can create that kind of like fixed mindset where we only see like the highlight reels of people's lives, and then you get down on yourself.
And you think you're gonna replicate it by like, oh, just tell me exactly what you did, and I'll get the same result. And it doesn't work. To give an example of that pottery thing about not starting things, I have the same problem, but I changed the way I do things. For example, I wanted to write a script recently. And I was sitting there for days and days and days, just like, what am I going to write? What am I going to write? I got to write the best thing. I'm going to write the best script ever. What am I going to write? And I didn't write anything at all. I would like half start something, stop, half start something and stop. And at the same time, I was studying a lot, which definitely did help. Like I was studying, but I wasn't writing it. Then I just thought, okay, I'm going to start with one fucking thing. I'm just going to force myself to start with this. And I just started writing. Yeah. And now I've got 95 pages into a script that everyone that's read so far thinks it's a great script, which is awesome. And then I would never have done that if I didn't just force myself to start. And this is the same with painting. I've had the same problem. I'll sit there, I'll go buy all the materials and sit there looking at like, what the fuck am I going to paint? And I'll have a million ideas and I just feel like it's not the perfect idea. But if I just start something like, all right, let's go, boom, boom, then suddenly it'll happen. And you'll be surprised at how much stuff you'll get out of. And the same thing with jiu-jitsu. It's like, well, you can sit there and try and find the perfect technique or the perfect thing to do, but you're just going to be much better off with just throw those legs out of the way, just try and pass, just make something happen and then go from there. And you'll learn so much from there. So I definitely resonate so much with that. A lot of times just do something. Just start something or start at some point, and you'll be surprised at how much comes from that. I've even done poetry. I'm not even a huge fan of poetry, but I've been forced to do it in some classes, and especially for acting. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to write. So I just start with one thing, and it could be something really fucking obscure or something like, you know, in this life, you will find that things do not match up. And then I would just go from there. Next line, next line, next line. And then suddenly you'd realize, wow, fucking something really fucking cool just came out of that. And that was how I did all my poetry and stuff like that. So just by starting at some point, you'll be surprised at how much information is sitting there. But if you try and approach it with the idea of I want to be perfect or I want this to be perfect, you're going to sell yourself short, because you're going to have to start, you know, at a certain area and just accept that you might fucking suck, but you're going to get better and better and better.
Yeah, man. Like I agree with exactly what you're saying. And it's crazy, man. It's like everything you're saying. I'm like, yes. And it's me, like with this podcast, I've wanted to do a podcast for a very long time, but I had analysis paralysis. It's just like, I would look up how to do a podcast, and I would listen to a podcast of how to start a podcast. And then I would look up YouTube videos and be like, oh, well, get this microphone or get this camera. And there's like 20 different people telling me all these different things. And I start analyzing, and then I don't actually do anything. And you prevent and you don't do anything. I mean, that's what stops a lot of people from doing anything they want in their life. And then it's like this saying that I heard a lot of people say. It's like it says men, but you could say it for women too. It says most men are living a life of quiet desperation, because they kind of, the things they probably want to do in their life, whether or not it's getting healthy, making more money, or starting a YouTube channel, or starting a podcast, or whatever it might be, but they need to hear what you said about failure. They need to understand that concept. Otherwise, they just won't. I think most people do understand that concept. Like, oh, you're going to be shit at it when you first start. Like, logically, it makes sense. But like, what do you think is the thing that stops people? Because logically, we all know this. what do you think, in your opinion, based on teaching people jiu-jitsu example, but you could teaching people anything, even acting, like you've probably seen it in the acting industry. Like, what do you think is that thing that stops people?
I think it's confidence. I think the confidence is what makes the difference, because without confidence, you're not going to take tasks up that are going to, one, get you to where you want to be, or you're going to not even take a step in the direction which way you want to go because you don't believe that it's possible. And I see this so often, like people just question themselves so often. I do the opposite. I believe in myself so much. Like the other day, I went ice skating for the first time in my life. And when I first got out, I was like fucking nearly sliding and nearly falling. Didn't fall. Then by like 20 minutes in, I'm fucking skating around everywhere. And I'm like, I'm looking like a hockey player. And Carolina said, like, she's like, you look like a hockey player. And then in my head, I'm like,
I am a hockey player.
I'm like, I should try out for the NHL. That's what through my head. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I can do it for sure. Yeah. And then I thought, oh, fuck, I'm 35 years old. Probably not. But I was like, if I wasn't 35, I would 100% try it. I would be like, yeah. And I would probably end up doing it because I believe so much in myself. I would do the work necessary to make that happen. And so I think a lot of people, this is a nice analogy to explain how a lot of people feel. Imagine you were dropped in the middle of the ocean, okay, with nothing. And the helicopter just flies away, okay? How long do you think you're going to last?
Not very long.
Yeah, you probably panic within the first couple of minutes and then drown. If I dropped you in the same ocean, I said, hey, we're going to be back in 1 hour, just survive. We'll be back. You're most likely going to survive if you can swim, obviously. Yeah. Or at least you're going to pace yourself to the point where you get yourself to a point where you're floating and you're just kind of waiting. But you're most likely that guy's going to survive a lot longer than the first guy. Most people are that first person. They just don't think there's any like light at the end of the tunnel. They start something, they suck, they identify as sucking, they think they're always going to suck, and then they don't go any further through that. For me, I know that that is a period that will pass. And I know it's also very hard to see that passing. Sometimes you feel like you suck for a long time. I'll give you an example of this. And this is also in jiu-jitsu. This is in online gaming. This is in movies. Usually when you start something, you start at a certain level where you're against most people that are probably that level or a little bit higher. Okay, so let's say you start jiu-jitsu and you're training with other white belts, but might have been training for a few months. So they're giving you a bit of a beating, but you slowly start, doing it right. Then the moment you start doing it right, you're going against blue belts. You know what I mean? So like you almost always feel like you suck, but you don't realize that the level you're just raising the level in which you're doing things. The same thing can be in film. You go into acting and you're doing short films with other people that are just starting out in film. So you might be acting with someone else or doing it, and you feel like you're doing pretty well. And then you get like a decent actor, and then he makes you feel like, wow, fuck, okay, I don't really know much about what I'm doing here right now. Or you get a challenging role. The roles that you take are more and more challenging, so they're much harder, and you always feel like I'm struggling. The same thing in gaming. I play online gaming. And when you first start, you're putting bot lobbies with other people that are first starting. So it might be easy to get a kill, or you might not, depending on if you've actually played games before. But the better you get, the more it keeps matching with people at the same level as you, or maybe a little bit higher, and or a little lower. And you always feel like you're struggling. But then by the time you realize that, you're like, oh, but I'm actually playing against the top 0.1% of gamers out there. So if you said, okay, they put me back down with the same guys I started with, you destroy them. Or, by the time you're a black belt and it's still, you're rolling against black belts and it's really hard. Okay, put me against a brand new white belt. You're like, okay, that's how far I've come. Yeah. But most people don't kind of realize that. So my point is, I understand that I'm going to suck for a while, and I'm going to keep pushing through that, and I'm going to persevere because I know that will pass. And I know it's also hard to see, but I just know it's passing. Yeah. And eventually I'm going to get to a position where I'm very good at that. If not, I'm one of the best in the world at that if I keep pressing myself and intelligently approach it. So I think most people don't realize or don't believe in themselves enough to even start a project, let alone, continue and persevere through it. And there are a lot of other people that are even in a worse position where they don't even know what they want to do.
That's another thing. That's all I was going to ask you. Like, so say, for example, here's a question for you. How does one gain confidence?
I think through doing things.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do it through observation as well. Like, let's say me and you, I see you do something. Let's say you become, this podcast blows up and you got billions of fucking downloads. And I'd be like, I know this guy. We're just the same. If he can do it, I can do it. You know, so you can take it that way. You can look at people that have done things and realize that, well, he's just a human. And you have to understand that they're all humans. They're all very similar to you. There's not a huge difference. I had a huge argument with someone the other day, telling me, like, I was talking about like inline hockey, which is it's like ice hockey on rollerblades, which is a little different to ice hockey. Yeah. And I was saying, like, the same group of people that do inline hockey could play ice hockey if they wanted to. You know, she's like, no way, there's a huge difference. They're all human. Like this, they're the same people started inline hockey that started ice hockey. Yeah. You know, they're going to have a small advantages and stuff like that. But if that same person started on ice hockey and persevered, like, ice hockey is going to be at a higher level because a lot more people do it. It's a lot more popular. You have a larger branch to pull from. There's more money in it. It's more likely that people are going to take it more professionally and train and take it more seriously. But the same humans are doing it. And the same humans are capable of the same things. This could be said the same thing that Jordan Peterson says, where, like, people that are very self-righteous and virtuous these days don't realize that the exact same person that, you know, could have been a Nazi back in, in Germany back in the day. Like, don't think that you're any better than anyone else. You're just a person doing what he thinks is best based on his upbringing and things he's seen. So my point is, everyone's human. So I can just realize that, like, you know, apart from certain things, like LeBron James is a fair few feet taller than me. I'm probably, you know, I'm not going to like try and do the same sort of shit. Doesn't mean I couldn't play NBA if I wanted to. It's just there'll be certain limitations on certain things. Or, you know, I might be trying to do a fucking a limbo competition where LeBron James is going to struggle, you know, compared to me because I'm a lot lower to the ground. There's many advantages you're going to have, but regardless, they're almost the same kind of people. And what dictates whether someone's successful or not is how they persevere through what they're doing and how intelligently they approach what they're doing. Like I said before, there's no point of knowing what we know and what I teach in learning if you're not going to apply it. You know what I mean? And there's other people that apply it the wrong way, but they apply it so relentlessly that they end up being pretty good anyway. But they just could be much, much better and be a lot quicker at that. So the perseverance is so important. So understanding that, you know, having the confidence, and you can either do it by looking at people or by achieving it yourself. And that's how I got it. It was more like, okay, I just did things and I started getting good at it. I represented a state level in inline hockey. I represented the Vic Eastern, like another state level in Australian rules football. I represented the country in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I play in the top 0.5% in gaming. There's.
What about being in the top 1% of OnlyFans?
Well, I was in the top. What was I? What was I? I was the top 1 point something percent in that as well. My point, I guess. But like, if you put your mind to something, okay, this is the goal I want to achieve, and I'm going to approach it intelligently, and I'm going to be relentless with, you know, the amount of effort I put into it, you're going to probably achieve that thing. And then you can go, well, okay, if I did that, then I can do this. Another problem people have is they're too worried about what people think of them.
Yeah.
And they don't want to look like they suck. They don't want to expose any kind of vulnerability in themselves, and they limit themselves because they probably won't try something new, or they won't try and downgrade their lifestyle to achieve that. Some things financially, you want to downgrade your lifestyle because most things that are hard to do, like, or most things that are worth doing, you don't get paid for at the start. You actually pay to do it. I mean, look at any martial art, look at any, let's say you're in sales, you want to be good at sales. Well, you're probably going to invest a bit of money in learning how to do that, at least getting a good start of it. In gaming, you're going to spend money on buying a console. You're going to spend time trying to get good at it, where you're not going to get paid at the start. You know, a normal job, you get paid at the start. A normal job that anyone can do. Like, okay, Kit, you've got a car license. Okay, most people have a car license. Okay, can you drive from A to B and back without dying? Yeah. Can you take these packages with you? Cool. Okay, I'll pay you money for that. Can you pick these flowers? Yeah. Okay, I'll give you money for that. Can you clean these toilets? Yeah, I'll give you money for that. Excuse me. There's a million ways you can get paid immediately. But if you want to be great at something and want to get paid, or you want to do something really great and get paid a lot of money, then you're going to have to invest a lot of time and money at the start where you don't get paid. But eventually you keep doing that, you're going to be very good at it and be able to make a lot of money. So let's take my jiu-jitsu, for example. When I first started training, I spent much more money than I made. I made almost no money, completely no money. And I spent a lot of money, not just on uniforms, but on training,
On the membership.
on traveling, on membership, on time. All of that I invested a lot. And to the point where, let's say 5-6 years later, I now, have made $180,000 in 3 months of selling online products through the jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? Could I have made that through truck driving? No. But if let's say I could have, if I started my own business, and I eventually have multiple truck drivers under me, for sure. But it's the same sort of route. You have to invest. You have to put time and effort into something to get it. Now, a lot of people want to do something. Let's say I met my brother a couple of years ago, and he, at the time, things worked out for him, but at the time he's like, okay, I want to do something that I enjoy. I want to be a teacher or something. And he's working as a plasterer. Wow. And he's making decent money as a plasterer. But he's like, I want to be a teacher, but I can't, because I've got to pay off these bills for these cars. It's got two brand new cars. It's got a new home. Yeah. So I'm like, what you need to do is you need to downscale your life. But he doesn't want to do that, because he doesn't want people to look at him as if he's struggling, or his
ego doesn't like it, because you're going backwards in society's eyes, but you're slowing down to speed up. A lot of people can't do that. Yeah.
Nah, and none of us want to do that. None of us look, someone might, but I don't like looking like I'm struggling. I don't like looking like I'm vulnerable or I'm going backwards, but I understand it's a process in which I'm taking a couple steps backwards to take multiple leaps forward. Yeah. And it is part of it. So, and eventually what he did is he moved into his parent-in-law's house, and they plastered out the shed. They had a fucking trash shed, and they put plaster in the shed and made a little 1-bedroom apartment in there with a bathroom. Okay. And he had a kid at the time as well. So they downscaled it. They sold their house. They had this thing. Now he has a big company. He didn't get into teaching, but he started his own company with plastering, and he has 7 or 8 people working under him. Wow. And he's doing very well. He's got a brand new home. He's got 3 kids now. So he did really well, but he had to take a few steps backwards. And don't think that didn't come without judgment. Of course, people were judging him. People look at him like, oh, fuck yeah, he had to sell his fucking house. And it makes them feel better in comparison, a lot of people, you know what I mean? Yeah. And, I remember me living on fucking couches for a while and stuff like that. I don't know, people judged me, living with my mum or something like that. People would judge me. Now they look at me and be like, fuck, man, he's so lucky. He makes money, doesn't work anymore. He does pretty much what he loves doing. And I wake up every day doing what I feel like doing and what I enjoy doing. And I have most of the sources to do what I feel like doing. And that's the life that I like to live, because I like to learn new things. I like to practice new things and play things and do things. And I'm able to do that. I don't have, much commitments that I have to do. My days are almost free, which I fucking love. But did that come easy? No. And would most people do that? No, because most people are not willing to do what I said. Most people are not willing to suck. Yep. Most people don't have the confidence to know if they suck, for a long period of time, they're going to get good at something. And most people don't want to take a step back in their lifestyle, because they want everything to be, perfect and good and moving forward. But sometimes you've got to sell your shit. Sometimes you've got to go back to, rock bottom. Sometimes, you've got to do these kind of things. And it's the people that are willing to do that are going to achieve the most, or at least live a life that they want to live in the direction they want to. And that's what, as a coach, I've seen the most. I've seen 1 million people come to me and say, I want to be a world champion. And it means nothing to me. I don't really care. I look at the way you persevere, the way you approach it. Is this kid turning up to training every single time? Is he turning up early? Is he studying shit? Is he telling me about stuff he's studying? Is he hanging late? Is he asking the right questions? Those are the dudes that I see and I go this guy could be something, amazing. Whether it will or not, whether that's going to last, or he's going to keep doing that, or he's going to meet a girl and she's going to take his attention. Who knows? But those are the ones that I see. I'm like, he's going to be good. And this is why I give very little credit to most coaches, because it's the students that decide where they're going.
Yeah.
Look at Gordon Ryan. look at Gary Tonin, look at Craig Jones. Are they good because of their coaches? No, not saying they're not, not saying the coaches didn't help. Those guys were going to be good regardless. They could have had a farmer coaching them and they were going to be good because they had the right attitude.
Yeah.
And you don't have to agree with everything they say, which I don't either, but they have the right attitude when it comes to learning.
Yeah.
And that's why they are the top of their field, because they had that attitude, not because they had a certain coach. And that might be a mentor that pushed them in a certain direction or motivated.
But yeah, man, I love what we're chatting about, and wanted to ask you a little bit more about acting. Like, where do you want to? Obviously, I mean, it'd be cool to obviously be an amazing actor and make a bunch of money. And do you want to be famous? It's another thing. I mean, you kind of already have a little bit of that already. Like, you've had a taste of that. Like, I've had friends in Australia, like my friend Ahren in Albany, Western Australia. I was like, yeah, I'm doing a podcast with Kit Dale. He's like, really? I know that. I follow that guy. That's sick. Cool. I've been looking at that guy's shit for years, and he's in a small town in Albany, Western Australia, with 30,000 people. He just got his purple belt, and so you already kind of got a taste of that sometimes. But like, would you want to be a famous actor?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
Like there's like, I want the parts that are really good, and I want the other parts. I don't want the other parts. Yeah. So like, let's break it down honestly. Like, yeah, being famous is good. I tell you what, I'm saying I'm famous, but like being famous would be good.
Yeah.
You get into restaurants quicker.
True.
You don't need to line up for shit. You don't need to wait for things. You barely ever need to even pay for things. People are going to want to give you stuff. People are going to want to throw you stuff. Like, I'm famous in a certain area, like let's say jiu-jitsu, right? And I'm not even that famous anymore because I don't train that much, and people are forgetting and people move on.
Yeah.
But don't forget me, guys. I'm still. For example, I haven't paid for a gi in a long time.
Oh, of course not. You get
and like, and I give gis away, and like, but my friends like, no, like, bro, take it. I get these all the time. I get it free all the time. You know what I mean? Like, I don't. And if I was like mega famous from acting, which would be a lot bigger platform, I probably wouldn't have to buy much either. I don't even have to go buy a car. You go to the dealership and they'll give you a car just so you can say that, hey, thanks fucking you're Brad Pitt, thanks fucking the BMW for this car. You've got a free car. Okay, take it, most likely anyway.
Yeah, because the amount of business that drives to BMW is astronomical.
Yes, so you become like you're a tool in a sense, and like restaurants are going to let you in straight away. Clubs are going to let you in straight away. And I don't get clubs anyway, but like if I did, I don't want to be lining up. I don't really line up for anything. That's why I hate the weekend, because not the actual singer, but the actual weekend. Because I'm sitting there. I'm like, during the week I can get to most restaurants. I'm in Los Angeles, and Los Angeles has more people, I think, in California than it has in the whole of Australia, or at least close anyway.
Yeah, 35 million in California. Has more people in California than Canada.
That's insane. So like, when you want to go to a restaurant, if that's a decent restaurant, then you got to think there's so many people lining up. And during the week you can get away with it. But if I want to go to my favorite place to eat on a weekend, good luck. There's an hour or two wait, if you can even get in. And you try and order it on Uber Eats, it's near on impossible as well. So I don't like having to wait for things. So there is a part of me that would be like, yeah, if I was famous, that'd be really nice. Plus, I mean, as a male, one of your main biological things is to reproduce with attractive females. And when you are famous, you have a lot bigger pull than what you don't. I remember when I did my movie Iron Sky: The Coming Race, and I was at the premiere in Finland, and there's about 2,000 people in the whole cinema in different cinemas watching the movie. When I came out, do you see the way people look at you? Females look at you differently. Even females with their male partners look at you differently. Even the males with their female partners look at you differently. The females are like, I want to bang that dude. The males are like, I want my girlfriend to bang that dude. And it's kind of like, it's not always like that, but I mean, a lot of it is. But regardless, you feel that because suddenly, like, you're a breadwinner now, and you're a breadwinner. Provider. Yeah, on a big level.
Like a biological thing for women to be attracted to men who can provide for them, and it makes you feel good as a man that you can provide better. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting.
Same thing happens in martial arts. You go to a tournament, you win the tournament. I mean, women look at you and they're like, this guy's a protector. Yeah. This guy's a beast. You know what I mean? And the same thing if I'm ever training and then like I'm throwing people around you're going to be most likely, more attractive in their eyes. So, I mean, as a male, of course, you like that feeling. Obviously, if you're in a relationship, you can't act upon it. But if I was single, holy shit, I would be fucking.
You'd probably have a disease, possibly.
Yeah, most likely. So that part I really enjoy, and it's nice to be appreciated for what you're doing.
Yeah.
The parts that I don't enjoy is like the times if I would want to be like discreet, if I want to be able to go somewhere without people talking to me. Let's say me and you go out, let's say I'm super famous and me and you go out for a lunch somewhere. The chances of us being able to have a conversation for more than 10 seconds without someone walking up and asking for a photo or asking questions is going to be very difficult.
It'd be, drive you insane.
Yeah. So that's the part that I wouldn't like. It'd be nice to have it and then be able to switch it off whenever you want. But maybe the technology will get good soon. You'll have masks that you can just put on and just be a different person or something.
Like Kanye West. You see Kanye West, that white mask he is walking around with?
Nah.
It's like a full latex thing, like a full latex white mask. He's just walking around and be like, yeah, that's Kanye. It's just like, okay, fair enough.
I could drive you to that point. Like, it'd be faster, especially if paparazzi are after you all the time and stuff like that. You just like, there's certain things that you might want to do discreetly and you're not going to be able to.
Especially with kids. Like if you had kids and it starts affecting you, that's fucked up. Like you see like famous people snap and like break somebody's camera. It's like, you're trying to take a picture of my 4-year-old. Like, fuck off. Like, go away.
Yeah.
Imagine
you've seen some of the Photoshop people do to me. Imagine like, them doing it to the people that like your kids and stuff like that. Shit, man.
Yeah, man. It would be hard. You have to have a really thick skin. It'd be really hard. But yeah, it's just.
And that's the other thing too. You're right. You would have to develop very thick skin because no matter who you are, people are saying some fucking bad shit about you. People are hurting inside. People are struggling inside, and they're going to use you as a vessel to release that struggle. And I've seen that on a small scale of people saying stuff about me. I've had people go on like Reddit and just write columns about me that are not true because they're just something about me triggers something in them, something about, and it manifests in, for them, me looking like a certain way and then them feeling like they are the truth bearers that need to take me down in some certain way, or and most of it's like through like slandering online or something like that. I've read some funny shit about myself, like, Kit's like an absolute bully in the gym. Yeah, I'm like, Kit's an absolute bully in the gym and he's a misogynist in there and he did this and that, and I know myself and I know what I've done. And I'm like, where's this guy's fucking creative? I need this guy as a writer because this is great. Like writing all this shit that like never ever happened. I'm like, wow, this guy or girl hates me that much that they feel like they need to go on Reddit and slander me with like a completely fabricated story.
So interesting. Hey, it really comes from like, we kind of spoke about it last time, is like people's trauma from their previous experiences or childhood, and then they project it and fling it at other people everywhere in their life. It's just interesting how people do. I've had that, and then it's very interesting if somebody says something to you that isn't true, but it triggers something within you. It's like, well, what is that? What is within me that it feels like reactive to that? And then you can go down a whole rabbit hole of trying to like dissect your own psyche in a way and be like, somebody could say something completely stupid, like, oh, you know what, Kit, your mustache is stupid. And like, for some reason, it really bothers you. And you think you're going to sleep that night. You're like, man, should I shave it? And you don't even know the person. And you're like, man, why is this bothering me so much? Like, why does this get to me so much? And it's very interesting doing that to yourself, like kind of psychoanalyzing yourself. I want to ask you a question. We chatted about this last time. You said that there's some emotions that you have like struggle with showing with acting, like crying and things like that. Like just be able to go boom, cry. Obviously, if you want to be a really good actor, you're going to be able to like do that. Like, what do you feel like that you would need to do to kind of tap into that stuff?
I think it's a lot of years of conditioning that I've like covered up certain emotions that I've not wanted to feel or not wanted to express. And vulnerability has definitely been one. Like my father was very tough. Even my mum was very tough, and they come from tough generations. And when I say tough, I don't mean like, you know, I just mean like emotionally, like unavailable, put it that way. My dad's dad was an alcoholic that used to beat the kids and sexually abuse the kids. My mum's family had stuff like that as well from some of her brothers and whatnot, or one of her brothers. And then you have them as parents. And as a kid, I used to get hit when I was being bad. And I would try and hide the pain, or, you know, I'd want to cry and I'd feel upset, but I would like force myself to not cry because I just, as you said last time, I didn't feel like it was safe.
Yeah.
You know, I felt like I've got no one to turn to, and I have to be there for myself. So I would not cry and I would hold that in. And you do that long enough, and then suddenly you get to a point where you don't even know if you can cry anymore. And it gets to a point where subconsciously, like if I feel like I'm going to cry or something brings me to tears, the same wording, like, which is always like, don't be a little bitch, comes up, and I hear it.
Yeah.
And it like stops me from being able to get to that place a lot of the time. So I think a lot of it is just trying to break that down. And it's one thing consciously understanding that being vulnerable is fine, but it's another thing subconsciously feeling that.
I had a very interesting moment yesterday. I cried, like an ugly cry. It was like a fucking ugly cry in the shower. Good place to do it. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
We just go outside when it's raining. Go outside when it's raining. Like, It was interesting. I'm part of this, like, I had this men's group that I'm a part of, and I think I told you about it last time, and we talk about some pretty deep shit. I've seen some men, similar story what you're saying, that haven't been able to, like, they've never felt safe to express the emotional side of things. And there's a few things that culminated in my ugly cry in the shower. I got a letter from my mom, and she was telling me, it was pretty crazy. Like, it was a very long letter, like an 8-page letter. I won't tell you, I'll try and summarize it, but basically, like, the way that she's felt like she's loved me ever since I was a baby, and like all these different things in my life. And she got to my teenage years, and she said, you were always a very sensitive guy. And what's interesting is all these young men like kind of like ostracized that and made that if you show your emotions, that's not cool, you're not a man. And then we shove it down at 12, 13, 14 when we're little boys trying to be a teenager, trying to be a man. We're not really sure how to do it. And then I was thinking, like, there's some guys from this men's weekend that I don't reach out to, and I really respect them. Some of them are really successful business owners. They're really like emotionally aware. And I was like, I know logically that these guys are really cool. I really respect them, like cool dudes. Like, I'd love to spend more time with them. Why don't I reach out to them? And there was a voice in my head. It's like, because if you show them who you really are, they might not care. They might not respect and love you anymore. I was like, and that made me cry. I was like, holy fuck, man. Like, that's the thing. Like, if I actually show and vulnerable, so even with you, if I actually was like, hey kid, man, like, this is what I struggle with. I open the doors for you to fucking really hurt me because I respect you and I think you're a cool dude. And if you say something, I'll just shut those doors, and I don't want to, and it hurts a lot. So it's better just not to even open them at all. And I think a lot of men do that. They just don't even open the doors, and they just kind of just shut it off.
Yeah.
It's like, holy shit, like, holy shit. And it was a big breakthrough for me. I was like, well, I should reach out to these people. And I actually recorded a video and sent it to some of them. And they were like, hey man, like, how do I get to know the real you if you won't even show people who the real you is? Like, how can I love you or care about you or think you're a great guy if you won't even open up? And I was like, that's a great question. I don't know. Like,
yeah, dude, it's so like, and you probably know more about this than me, but it's a very tribalistic thing.
Yeah, you
know, that we developed, you know, centuries ago to belong in a certain tribe, and you feel like, well, if I show them anything that's not of value, then I might not have my position in this tribe, this safe position. And if you're not in the tribe, you're most likely going to die on your own. So it's so crazy how we try and alter our appearance, who we are, the way we are, what we show people, based on being accepted or respected.
Yep.
And then you go back into, like, you know, what people do and the sacrifices people make for that same amount of respect. And,
They
for
do
example,
crazy shit. Like,
yeah,
a lot of women getting their lips done, their asses done, or like all just to fit into what society thinks that is beautiful. But I don't think it doesn't. No, but even men, like, it's crazy.
these fucking tattoos, bro. What do you think these were for?
Yeah, I'm covered in tats.
These are cool makers.
Yeah,
They're cool stickers.
it's so true, man. Like, I remember this. My friend asked me the other day, he's like, "Why did you get tattoos? And like, why did you do steroids in your early 20s?" I was like, "Because I was bullied, and I was this emotional little kid that grew orchids and played the clarinet and was like painting my little Lord of the Rings Warhammer thing that I got in the magazine."
That's the best shit.
And I would do all this stuff, but then there was a point in my time where it was really not safe to express that. So you kind of kill that little kid, you like destroy them. But the thing is, what I've discovered through trying to, like, lack of a better term, heal myself and kind of become a more whole version of me and incorporate all of that and not kill certain parts of me or be ashamed of certain parts of me, is that I kind of killed that kid and then I swung the pendulum too far the other way when I was like, I got my entire leg tattooed. I got my entire arm, I got half my back tattooed. I started losing my hair. I grew a beard, and I wanted to be this person who was like this scary. I wanted to become the bully in a way, or look like the bully. And I was pumping steroids at like 18, 19. I was jacked. And I remember that feeling. It's funny how you know that feeling of women looking at you. I remember going to Stereo Sonic 2011 or 12. And I remember I was yoked, man. I was just like 19 years old, straightened hair, just looks like, got the hair like ziz, like just looks sick. I remember women looking at me and guys looking at me because I looked ridiculous. I looked so sick. I remember that feeling. But what the feeling was all external. None of it was internal, because I still felt like that scared little kid that got bullied at 12, 13, 14 for liking stuff. Not like, oh, why don't you play footy? Like, and I always get smashed by the bigger dudes playing footy. It's funny you said that before. Like, I'd go in for a tackle. I'm like, oh shit, I'd get wrecked because I was smaller.
Mm-hmm.
So like, and all these things, it's like, why did I get tattoos? It's like, because I wanted to project a certain image. Don't get me wrong, I love my tattoos. I like them for the artwork and I think it looks cool. But I think a lot of people can hide behind that, especially men. They can hide behind that tough guy look, and they're usually the guys that are struggling the most. And the further they go down that path, the more scary they look, the more they kind of it's harder for them to be like, yeah, man, I'm actually an emotional guy, and like, I don't know how to fucking express it. It's a journey that every man needs to take, because if they don't take it, what will happen, I've seen it, is it'll start, if you don't start working on yourself and working on some of this shit, is it'll start really coming out in really ugly ways. Like my friend the other day was like, man, those people that like run down people in the street in their cars, like those people have probably felt frustration for 20, 30, 40, 50, or their entire lives. And then it just comes out in this really ugly way. And it's just sad. So that's the thing. Like most men, I think that they only ever feel the one emotion to express is safe to express, which is anger. You can express that. That's okay. Anything else, you're a bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're sad, like, you're not a man, like shove it back down, like move on, you'll be right. But then like when you're 30, 40, you're like, man, like, fuck, I can't cry. Like, I'm only angry. I'm angry all the time.
Dude, it's the game I play, Call of Duty Warzone, right?
Yeah.
Has a function in it that when you kill somebody, you can hear what they're saying in their mic for maybe a second. And you should hear the shit that they say, dude. It's like you can tell the ones that are suffering a lot from what they say. Some of them will just say completely racist stuff. Some of them will just be like, you know, you're a fucking piece of shit. And I play with some dudes that are like that. Like I play, like every time they die, they're trying to say something hurtful. And usually it's a sexist or homophobic slur or something like that.
Wow.
Like the most common homophobic slur I hear every single time is like, you're a faggot. It's like fucking every single time I got to hear this shit. And the amount of times I've killed someone and heard them say like something just toxic is just insane. I'm like, you're playing a game that we're all supposed to kill each other. Like that's the name of the game. Why would you be angry at someone for doing that? And like, I get angry at the fact that I died, and I was out positioned or something like that. But very rarely do I take it personally or blame the person. You know what I mean? That's what his goal is. Like, oh, you'll hear me, I'll be like, oh, fuck, I fucking hate this fucking game. But it's like, it's the game. You know what I mean? It's like, that's the name of the game. And that's what I hate. But I still play it because it's addictive.
It's fun.
But, and like most people will, like 95% of people will blame the player or yell at the player and abuse the player. But I'm like, what do you expect? That's what they're supposed to do.
That person doesn't have tools to figure it out themselves. So they've turned to things like that. And it's just not you see it firsthand. It's not a healthy way to deal with it. And you could do it through, I mean, a healthy way that a lot of people do with it is like going to the gym or a martial art. My friend Marcus, I'm going to do a podcast with him, and wait till you hear this guy's story. Like, I'll send it to you once it's done. It'll blow your fucking mind like crazy. And he's very, oh, dude, like crazy. I won't give anything away. It's just, he's had a crazy journey with a lot of death around him, death within himself, almost died, like pretty wild. But he said something to me the other day where he was like, man, like most people are like imagine like a pot or a pressure cooker. And like most people, there's a pot of water, and we need to regulate our nervous system because the pressure builds up. We're all a pot of water. And some people do it with like alcohol. They have it, they go out in alcohol or the gym or working out or hanging out with friends. Like they constantly anger. They're feeling something. And every time you just need to let the pressure off, maybe having sex, like this, like you get angry. Like, I need to have sex. I need to fuck something. I've known guys like that. I'm like, what the hell, man? Like they're so weird about it. And he's like, dude, you need to explore as a human being what's in the pot. You need to dump the pot. And if you don't dump the pot, you'll constantly be just trying to like build the pressure off. And the more and more you do that, the older and older you get, the harder and harder it is to break the pressure on that. I was like, okay, well, wouldn't it just build back up again? He's like, dude, if you dump the pot, and say if the pot is full of anger, for example, if you dump the pot, then one day when you get angry again, you don't have to let the pot build up with water again. You don't have to let it build up again because you know, okay, that's the shit that was in the pot. It's happening again. I know how to fix it because I've started dealing with some emotions. Then I can start, it never has to happen again. Therefore, you can become a more complete human being because you're like, okay, I'm fucking angry right now, but I'm not going to shove it down. Or I feel like I need to cry right now because this is actually sad. I'm going to do it, and I'm not going to shove it back down. Mm-hmm. And I discovered recently that I got bullied a lot, and there was a lot of times where I felt very small. Other men made me feel very small, and that's, I think, why I got the tattoos. Like,
very similar to me. Why
I got the beard and why I did the steroids, because I'm like, nobody's ever going to make me fucking feel small again.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, I was doing some meditation recently, and I went deep, and I touched this. I've never felt safe to be angry. Like my friend Marcus, the guy I'm talking about, is like, I've never seen you angry or sad. Like it's like, I feel those emotions. I'm like, nah, I'll just be this happy-go-lucky guy. And he's like, dude, that's kind of like, if you don't deal with your anger, it could come out in a really weird way one day. And I started thinking about like, what am I angry about? And I literally went deep down, and I found this, for lack of a better term, I found like a bottomless abyss, like a bottomless dam of anger that I have. But I never express it, because every time I express anger, I'm like, oh, you're being weak because you can't control your emotions. So control being angry, because that I've always looked at men that they get angry and lose control as weak. Mm-hmm. I've always looked at them that way. I'm like, well, I don't want to be weak. And I was like, fuck, man, I need to express my anger, but I don't know how to do it. And he's going to help me do that and like do it in a positive way. But yeah, like it could be something.
Once you go to one of those rooms where you just bash everything with a baseball bat.
Yeah, like,
you seen those?
Yeah, just smash it.
Yeah. Because I think about that as well. When was the last time that you just screamed or just roared as loud as you can?
Never.
Yeah, I don't think I ever either. But like Carolina will do that, and I got a few friends that'll do that. I feel embarrassed if I was going to do that. You know, they'll go to the top of mountains and just like, woo, do shit like that. Well, I feel like embarrassed to do that. And there's a lot of and it's not embarrassing. It's just, there's a lot of shit in my head that like, I don't want to bring attention to myself in that way a lot of the time. But I was thinking the other day, like, I feel like I need to just fucking scream.
Yeah,
I need to
that's
do
what Marcus
something.
told me. He said you need to like get into a pillow. He's like he's talking about regulating his nervous system. A lot of people, we don't know how to regulate our own nervous system. So a lot of us have anxiety. We don't know why we have anxiety. We live in an anxiety-ridden culture. I have anxiety all the time. It's like you don't have to, man. You have to learn. You actually have tools. You can learn how to regulate your own nervous system. And like I've done things with like plant medicines and psychedelics, and I used to have a different perspective on it. He's like, that is a tool. It is like a shovel. It'll dig a hole and then like, hey man, this is what's in the hole. But that's all those things are. You can do it many other, you can do it through therapy, you could do it through breath work, you could do it through taking a bunch of psilocybin mushrooms, doing some LSD, going to the middle of the jungle in Peru and doing ayahuasca, or whatever people think. But a lot of people think that, oh, there's this whole spiritual movement right now that I've seen, like, oh, I've got to go do a bunch of mushrooms, I got to do this, and that's going to fix me. No, it is a fucking shovel to dig up your shit and be like, hey, look at all the stuff we dug up, deal with it. But and when you're not doing any of these things, and that's the hard part. And a lot of people kind of like, they maybe dig it up or they feel those things, but they never deal with them. And it goes back to learning. It's like you can learn, you can see what you need to learn, but sometimes people are like, oh, I don't want to do it that way. I don't want to deal with it that way. I don't want to do the hard thing because it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Very uncomfortable.
Definitely happens in jiu-jitsu. Like people don't want to think. The people want to come here. Maybe some people want to just come and have a wrestle. That's fine. But if you really want to get really good and you want to reach your true potential, you're going to have to think. You have to think for yourself.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're selling yourself short. But I get it. Some people don't want to be that great. Some people don't want to be the best. Some people don't want to reach their true potential. And like I said, some people just want exercise. Some people want camaraderie, to be part of a group. And that's fine.
Have a community.
Yeah.
Every human being wants to be part of a community. And that's what I think COVID has really like fucked a lot of people up, is like they had maybe a community at work, but now everybody's working from home. I had a community at a jiu-jitsu gym or a fitness location, like in Vancouver right now, no gyms are open. None. And that's really like really damaging a lot of people. Even my partner, she's like, even me, like some days we're like, man, I wish the gym was open because it's a release for that pot.
Yeah.
And if you don't have those releases, it can turn ugly. It could turn into alcohol. It could turn into like people have drank more during COVID than any other time in the past, like 15, 20, 30 years. I think even longer, like ever. Like in BC and British Columbia, they did a study of like per person, how much somebody drank. It like tripled, which is crazy. But jiu-jitsu gyms just open back up because they're a sport and sports are allowed open. You can breathe on somebody's face doing rolling. You can have somebody.
You can't do fucking weights within fucking 5 meters of somebody else.
I've never breathed on somebody at like a weightlifting gym, but that's the thing. A lot of this stuff doesn't make sense, and it's taking a lot of the things away from people that are those releases for them for their own mental health. And that's the kind of hard part right now. But I mean, fuck, what do we do?
Screaming pillows, bro.
Exactly.
Do Zoom meetings.
Yeah, like talk about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. I mean, we could probably wrap it up there. I mean, we could chat all day, but I learned a lot today. There's even stuff you said to me, like with I want to acknowledge some things that I got out of it. I've got like a really expensive car payment right now, and I want to start like banking some money this year. So my car payment's like $1,300 a month, which is a lot.
What do you got?
An Audi 2018 Audi RS5.
Oh shit!
It's like a $75,000-$80,000 car, and I'm thinking about like if I could get a $300 a month car payment, I could bank $1,000. But my ego and a lot of people around me would be like, bro, like you got a Toyota Corolla after having an RS5, and it would be a bit of an ego death. Like I know it would. And there's a part of me that's like, well, I like this car. It's like, well, that's fine. You can like the car. And there's a part of me like, we should keep it because you like it and it makes you happy. But I'm like, well, if I need a car to make me happy, then that's weird. So what you said, I'm like, man, I should just fucking sell the car so I can slow down like your brother did. So I can go ahead and save more money and start investing in other things, maybe start investing in some real estate. maybe pouring more money into building this podcast or building a YouTube channel. Like this will be on YouTube. So things like that. So I want to thank you for that, because I was like, man, like that's cool, because you make a lot more money than I do, and you have a life where you can do things that you want to do. And I probably work a lot harder per hour than you do, but you probably did that for many, many years to build yourself to this point so you can do the things you want to do. So yeah, it just really inspires me hearing that from somebody like you. I'm like, that's cool. Like, okay, cool. This guy is doing things that I want to do, lives a life that he can pick whatever he wants to do. So if he thinks the same way as me, and we share some mindset on certain things, then I can emulate that and follow that, and I can build my dream life of whatever that might be. So yeah, that's what I got out of that conversation today. So I really appreciate it. I want to thank you for that, man.
You're much younger than me too, so you got a lot more years.
I do. I'm 29. I'm born in 92, so I turned 30 this year, which is interesting. I used to dread it, but now I'm kind of excited. I'm excited.
I'm just under 7 years older, so you got 7 years, bro. 7 years, you could do anything.
Yeah.
Anything. 7 years, you could do anything.
Yeah.
So you could be at my age now and have whatever goal you set. I think you could do 3 or 4 of them in 7 years. So I think it's fun. I think it's exciting seeing that. You should go to the NHL. Do it for me.
Yeah. So what I'm really trying to say is you should go to the NHL. Like,
yes.
You could figure out everything we said in this podcast. You should go to the NHL.
Wouldn't that be funny though? Wouldn't that be hypothetically in 7 years you're playing at NHL? I'll say, see what happened?
Fuck, that'd be funny. Like at 37 years old, like, yeah, this guy just came out of nowhere. Like,
yeah, he's playing NHL. Yeah, podcast with someone that wanted to play NHL, but said he was too old, so he convinced him to do it. That's the whole podcast.
Now he vicariously lives through him, and they look very similar. They both have bald heads and some facial hair. But yeah, man, it was a pleasure. Thank you for spending the time with me this morning. I'm probably going to maybe go train if there's an open mat somewhere today, but I appreciate your time, man. Thank you.
Likewise, man. It's always a lot of fun, bro.
Yeah. We'll chat to you soon, dude.
All right, mate. Take care, bro.
Bye.